Hello there, guys. It's me, Petrus Patsivus, back once again with another episode of Caged In. This was recorded on the 13th of April, 2018, obviously, because it didn't go that far back in time. It didn't predate earlier episodes. This is the episode for Bad Lieutenant. This isn't me coming back full time. I'm not sure what the plan is yet. I possibly will finish off this journey because it feels like a bit of a waste to not do that. But I don't know, those of you who followed all the social media, which is now closed down, would have seen that, I don't know, I've had some personal shit going on that I'm not really going to get into on this intro. But one thing I want to say to you guys is fucking look after yourselves, alright? Just make sure your head is okay and do things because you enjoy it. And if this thing does come back full time, it's not going to be weekly. It's going to be when I fucking feel like it and when it's fun for me, because that's what matters at the end of the day. I'm not getting paid to do this. I've received no money for this. Even the time that this podcast hasn't been up, I'm still paying money for it to be hosted just so more people can listen to it if they want to. And I don't really care if they do. I've stopped looking at stats. I've stopped posting on social media about it, and I feel fucking great for doing so. So if it does come back, there'll be none of that. There'll be no stat checking. There'll be no social media. It's just there for you guys who may have kept the subscription, not realised that it had gone at all in the first place. So yeah, let's get back to it. Enjoy this one. Bye. The date is Friday the 13th of April 2018, and I am here on an overcast day to talk about the 2009 film Bad Lieutenant. I am joined by the ever fabulous, ever charming and knowledgeable Bob Turnbull. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but this train must roll on through to the station that is Cage Town.
Absolutely.
And I will not let anything stop me, whether that be illness, whether that be a bad weather. Well, I don't know how that would ever stop me.
An alligator in the road.
Exactly. Or even I think the only thing that would ever slow me down from doing this is if death or the internet went down, which for some people are very comparable. So, yeah, we're here to talk about Bad Lieutenant, and as always, you know the drill. Have you seen this film, Bob?
I've seen it in the cinema, yeah. Yeah.
Can you, like, without spoiling it, just kind of give us, like, a yes or no to whether this is a worthy Cage title?
It's definitely a worthy Cage title, definitely.
Oh, I am looking forward to getting stuck in, because I've never seen this film.
Have you not?
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, I'm fucked. This is going to be great.
So I'm looking forward. I have obviously seen the film this, like, just before recording. Me and Bob were talking about the fact that this shares a title with the Abel Ferrara, I think it's like early 90s film, starring Harvey Keitel, which I have seen.
This is a great film, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very dark and, like...
Yeah, super dark.
I think it's burnt into my mind, that scene of him. I always found it quite humorous, of him like pouring a glass of vodka and then just necking from the bottle. Yeah. And then like just there naked in his apartment, kind of like, I don't know, shaking around going, and there's a lot of crazy stuff in that, like about nuns. It's real dark. I don't think
sexuality,
it's
like assault and stuff. It's
really
like
the raping of a nut. It's really got some heavy fucking subject matter, and like I really want to see if I was.
There's no joy in that film. Actually.
Not at all. Like, and he like there is some real brutal and disturbing scenes, and like it's a very hard film to get on board with, because obviously your protagonist is essentially majorly flawed, not just like a kind of anti-hero. He is like very much bordering on being immoral and disgusting.
He's a fucking bad guy. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see where Werner Herzog has taken Nicolas Cage in this film. Werner Herzog, fantastic guy.
I can't even believe that he wanted to remake it or whatever. It's a weird combo. I mean, I can imagine why he would have enjoyed the original, but it seems like a really weird thing to do. He remade Nosferatu before that, but I don't think he's remade anything else. So these are his 2 remakes, Herzog's 2.
Yeah, I'm interested because I remember briefly hearing somewhere along the line of possibly I will look at this after we watch the film, so that when we come back I can clarify. But hearing something about Herzog being quite disparaging to the original and kind of like
really, like he didn't like it.
Yeah, like it's like. And like I think someone had like maybe tried to put comparisons to it. Don't hold me on that. There may be a total 180 on that when we come back a bit later.
I mean, that makes it make even less sense that he'd want to adapt it. It's fucking weird.
I don't know. I think maybe the idea of working with Cage like appealed to him. And
I can definitely imagine that. Yeah. I mean, now that he's lost his main man, old what's he called? Oh, suddenly I can't remember his name. Most fantastic guy from Wrath of God.
Fritz Lang.
No, not Fritz Lang.
No.
Fritz Lang's the director of Metropolis.
Oh yeah, of course he is.
What's he called? I suddenly can't remember his name. Klaus Kinski. And he was in so many different Herzog films. He was like his main man. He was a wild man. You're a crazy guy. In many ways, probably has a lot in common with Cage in terms of acting styles.
Well, I imagine like he's kind of dabbled with Hollywood's crazy men throughout his career.
Yeah.
With Willem Dafoe.
Yes, of course.
Is he in?
He's in My Son, What Have You Done? That's very.
Who's in Nosferatu?
Nosferatu, it is Klaus Kinski as Nosferatu, and the dude from Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire as the guy who sort of goes into Dracula's lair, kind of thing.
Oh, amazing! So Wings of Desire is actually a link to Nicolas Cage because that is the inspiration behind City of Angels.
Of course, yeah.
The like mid-90s kind of very bizarre like religious film about an angel falling in love with a woman and stripping of his wings, and obviously it was
also to link it back to Defoe again, the sequel's got Defoe in it, 2 Wings of Desire.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
That is absolutely amazing. So have you been practicing your Herzog impression for?
I haven't been practicing, but I'll try to whip it out later on.
Oh, fantastic! So I imagine looking at the direction of this film, we'll definitely be able to like analyse or like kind of come up with what may have been said on set when he was directing Cage. But Herzog, like I don't think I've seen any of the films he's directed, but I love, apart from some of the documentaries that I've seen, Enter the Void, Into the Abyss.
Into the Abyss, the one about jail and the stuff.
Fantastic. I've seen elements of Lo and Behold, and, but like him as an actor and like a voice actor is fantastic. Like of all films, I think it's Jack Reacher. He plays the villain, and it's just.
I remember Herzog said that he was worth every penny. He said in response to why he did that role. I was like,
amazing.
Doesn't he get a guy to cut off to eat his own fingers or something?
Well, Herzog, I think, has like stumps for fingers and stuff. He's very, very sinister guy.
Yeah, it's a great idea to get him as a villain,
but a very interesting, like director and person, having
artist,
like
auteur
in the past, like. Actually gone through with the promise of like I will eat my own shoe, and directed a film of like when being proven wrong, actually went through with the idea of eating his own shoe and was famously shot during an interview with Mark Kermode, right?
Oh yeah, of course, he was shot with an air rifle, wasn't he? By someone?
Yeah.
Good lord, in the leg, and he rolls up his trouser leg, and there's just this like sort of bullet hole there, and he's like, no, I can't do the voice now. He's like, continue the interview,
which is the dogged determination that I like to embrace myself and go through this journey.
You're doing a podcast, someone just shoots you in the leg.
I will carry on. That's how much I'm dedicated to this wild ride, guys. So I've got a little anagram up front from my good old friend Thomas
underscore W underscore Hunter on Twitter, and that's for the title of this film, Bob. So that is Tailban United or Anal Debut Night.
Oh, that's much better. I like the latter rather than.
So what can we what do we think that Anal Debut Night may conjure up, that may have some tangential link to the film we are about to watch? Obviously, without spoiling anything, because you have seen this. Like, I think that this may say something about the depravity and the disgustingness
Sure.
of the scenes we're about to see. Hopefully, we are going to get to the bowels of New Orleans. It's not that's the thing. Pronunciation. Are you a New Orleans guy or New Orleans guy?
I'm a New Orleans guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna adopt the traditional Southern dialect with the New Orleans. So I'm gonna be very much a New Orleans guy. And Cage actually has some very interesting links to New Orleans himself.
Oh yeah.
Having owned a famous murder house that was in New Orleans, and also having his mausoleum.
That crazy pyramid.
Crazy pyramid there, ready for the fateful day that hopefully, or I imagine, will never come.
Yeah.
Because the man has been spotted in photos as early as the mid 1800s.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe he is just an interdimensional, like, eternal, immortal vampire.
No, I hope so.
That will carry on for generations and generations.
Vampire's Kiss was actually a documentary.
Oh, definitely. He is this soothsaying, mystic spirit that is just sent here to test the realms of insanity in acting for our modern age, and then will kind of transpose into another profession in another life.
Yeah.
Some believe he may have actually been Rasputin.
Oh wow.
No, that's just me. That is just me, guys. I don't know why I'm like very fixated on Rasputin at the moment. I saw a photo.
You look a little bit like Rasputin yourself.
One of the strangest things when looking at photos of Rasputin, he looks like my dad.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you asked your dad?
I don't really want to, because I'm scared of the answers. I'm scared to now do like Ancestry.com or anything like that and see that a high percentage of my bloodline comes from Russia. And I'll tell you one thing though, I'm not as well endowed as Rasputin, who you can actually Google. You can do this at home, guys, but his penis has been preserved in formaldehyde and was in a museum until his daughter bought back her own father's penis.
Oh, Jesus. What, to sort of stop people from looking at it?
Yeah, but I think staring into the eye of that penis should be done by, like, weirdos and the general public than your own daughter.
Yeah, I know.
Surely that's got to be a mood killer if you're, like, having a potential, like, suitor round. Like,
yeah, sorry, that's my dad's
the
dick.
dick. Yeah. An urn would be a lot more...
To get emotive about it, maybe she just wanted to bury it. You know what I mean?
That obviously brings up some
little sort of ceremony for a penis. You know, Jodorowsky talks about that. Little funeral for a single penis.
I would like to. All I can imagine is a very peculiar, like, end of Carrie style, the penis coming from the grave, an erect penis bursting out of the soil. Well, that's enough about Rasputin's cock.
I can tell this is going to be good. Yeah.
So let's just get on and get raging with Cage. He's walking the beat. He's the bad man on the street. That was Nicolas Cage in Bad Lieutenant. How did you find it for a second time, Bob? I assume second time.
It was. I think it's actually the third time. Actually,
third time's a charm.
Third time's a charm. I mean, I really enjoyed it in many ways, differently to how I viewed it before. I sort of don't know if it's just the mood I'm in, the fact that it's the third time around, but I do think it is a good film. I didn't quite enjoy it on that sort of visceral level I did the other two occasions. I remember laughing a lot more the last time. Maybe I was just a bit more pissed, I'm not sure, but I remember finding it a lot funnier than it was this time. This time I thought it was more contemplative as a movie.
I thought that like this would have been, there would have been more like manic Cage. Do you know what I mean? Like real off the handle, and like it's there in places, definitely. Like
there's a few key scenes there.
Yeah, that, like. But I thought it was gonna be like balls to the wall,
Yeah.
like real like raging Cage throughout. Do you know what I mean? Like almost like on par with like a Face Off or a Vampire's Kiss.
Yeah.
But it kind of seems like tempered down, and I'm not sure if that is the influence of Werner Herzog.
Yeah. He's trying to sort of put a lid on it a little bit to sort of make it like realistic, or
like I don't know. Has he managed to kind of find that essences of Cage that work, and like distill them down and not letting him? I don't know. Perhaps in other films, from like listening to audio commentaries on Vampire's Kiss and just doing a lot of research into that film, I know that like the director and didn't really know, they both didn't know what was going to happen in the film.
Wow.
So it sounded like Cage was left a lot to his own devices, and he himself has likened his performance and like taken inspiration from the original Nosferatu.
Wow.
In like very much like his kind of angular body movement, and that of like silent cinema specifically, which brings me on to like a very good like point of how this film like kind of links all the way back, not just with Cage's like performance in Vampire's Kiss being that very much like Max Schreck's in the original Nosferatu. Obviously Werner Herzog, as you said earlier, directed the remake of that in 2000. There's also kind of a like third link to that, because obviously Nosferatu is based on the Bram Stoker's Dracula, which in 1992 was made into a feature film by none other than Francis Ford Coppola. So bringing it kind of like there's a holy trinity of how like Herzog, Cage and Coppola kind of
is that the
meet
one
in this weird.
Yeah, is that the one with Willem Dafoe?
Willem Dafoe and Gary Oldman, I believe.
I think it's no. Gary Oldman's in. I'm confused now, because there's one basically where Dafoe plays Max Schreck. He actually plays the actor and they're filming Nosferatu, but he's like the actual real deal.
No, that is an entirely different film.
Oh right, okay.
So
Dafoe's not in Coppola's one. So Coppola's one's a separate one.
Yes, Coppola's. Nick Cage's actual. There is a further link actually, because Nick Cage's company Saturn Films went on to produce the movie you're talking about, which is the making of Manaru's Nosferatu, called Shadow of the Vampire in 2000.
I like that movie. Which
again brings it like Cage has his fingers in that Nosferatu pie very deeply.
That bloody pie.
I find that great though, like those kind of like weird. I don't know. I found in my own personal life the links to Cage, like because I went to an exhibition for the Isle of Dogs in London. I saw like the props and stuff like that, and I saw the film. And the moment walking out of the cinema, I turned around to my girlfriend and said, like, "Oh, did you notice that film was written by two of Nicolas Cage's cousins? Because it says story by Wes Anderson, obviously, Jason Schwartzman and Roman Coppola." And it's almost like I can't escape
the
just
Cage.
Like, I have this kind of like A Beautiful Mind style, like I can see the code in front of me wherever I go, and it all just leads back to Nicolas Cage.
That's
like
fantastic.
I'm almost like piecing together like 6 degrees of Nicolas Cage in anything I do or watch or see. So yeah, this film, like briefly, what would you kind of, in like a kind of 5-sentence, or do you know what I mean, like a brief summation of what this film is really about, like just plotline really, not like.
I'd say a sort of a corrupt police officer in a post Hurricane Katrina New Orleans sort of roams around trying to solve cases involving one specific murder, sort of a drug related case, and in between sort of it deals with his relationship to a prostitute he's kind of in love with, and him sort of trying to obtain drugs illegally by taking them out of the evidence locker of the evidence locker.
Well,
is that it?
I feel it's a lot of it's kind of built up of vignettes of this guy's life. I found like the film, many points felt like it kind of very easily just kind of shifted maybe like a 45-degree angle into you kind of felt unsettled of where it was going next.
It doesn't have it is coherent, but it doesn't really have a story that goes from A to B to C to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It darts about where it wants to in order to show you or reveal more about Cage's character, about this kind of. But you never really still know why he's so corrupt or what his sort of disdain for conventional morality. That doesn't really. You never really hear about that.
What we're led to believe almost is because in the opening scene, that scene in the prison cells, I imagine it is very close after the aftermath of Katrina with the prisoner.
It's still flooded, right?
Yeah, prisoner being flooded, and whether he'll save him or not. I'm not sure whether it's meant to be that he is a relatively he's seen to be a relatively good guy because he goes in to actually save the guy, even though joking about and having bets of whether the guy how long it'll take,
disabling himself in the process as well.
Yeah. And I'm not sure whether we're supposed to believe that is the catalyst for him. Is it this back pain? Is that
that's why he needs to take so many drugs. I mean, they directly say that. Yeah,
the manifestation of his do you know what I mean? Is that the thing that pinpoints is that the moment where he kind of went off the rails?
Because it's also as soon as he saves the guy, it then cuts to a shot of Cage limping onto the stage to receive an award for his work in the post Katrina city. So I think that is directly saying that he was given an award for saving that guy. So you, as an audience member, you're not really sure, did he deliberately jump in because he knew, well, I'll get a medal out of this and this will progress my career further. It's kind of, I'm not sure if that's what it means or not, but
I'm not. Yeah. And that's what I like about this, because it is very ambiguous and doesn't explain doesn't explain his motivations for a lot of things. As you said, we don't go into. There isn't something. I turn around to you and it's what actually happened when he jumped into that water. It wasn't as ham-fisted as a lot of films would have portrayed it. In other hands, this would have been a very clear-cut, either a redemption story, but this is more of a character study. I thought.
Yes, absolutely. Which is really good for Cage, and to showcase his abilities. It's perfect, something like this. But it's interesting. I think the only scene where it really you kind of get down to realising that he is a very bad guy. I mean, there are a couple of scenes in it, where he takes the woman's oxygen away and he shoves the gun in their face and he's like, "You're the reason why this society is crumbling apart."
Ripping the inheritance money out of your grandkids. What the fuck are you achieving by just being alive? Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that is, you truly kind of feel like he is an awful person, and also has no sort of love or compassion in his heart. But in the scene which is the only scene to my memory, I haven't watched the original Bad Lieutenant for a long time, but in the original Bad Lieutenant, there's a scene where he sort of masturbates in front of a car and forces a girl who's committed a crime to basically get her ass out or something.
Yeah.
And this is this really perverted, heinous scene where you see how bad Harvey Keitel's lieutenant really is. But in this movie, they kind of echo that with that scene where Cage pulls over a couple who are kind of taking some drugs, or they're going to do something in an alley. They're getting a bit sexy, and he kind of ends up making the girl sort of have sex with him while sort of forcing her boyfriend to watch at gunpoint. And he's saying this stuff to her while everything's getting a bit sexy, and he's doing sort of crack with her, and he's saying things about oh yeah, I bet your parents, they remember you when you were a little girl, and
they never turned up to your school play.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And at this point, I mean, really, you're like, oh my god, this guy's really fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, that's really strange. I mean, it's obviously like absolute power, like power control, but he's getting off on these little details, and that makes you think. I mean, it's no kind of fucking redemption story. This guy is a piece of shit.
And like, I just find, I don't know, I find it interesting, like, to see Cage in this role, because obviously, like, I don't know, it seems like a lot of the stuff he's done, like, recently up until this point in, like, the journey I'm taking, like, this is by far the most, like, interesting, because it's not like a big studio film, and it's not a super low budget, like, cash grab. Like, a lot of them seem to be, or, like, rumoured to be, like, in Cage's part. This actually seems like it has some artistic merit, and obviously, like, Werner Herzog's direction is great.
Yeah.
And, like, a lot of the moments that clearly are Werner Herzog has brought to the table. I believe that scene we were just, like, referencing about, like, the kind of, I don't know, is it like a rape? I don't know, like, but like that kind of like weird
it plays with that in a sort of straw dogs kind of way. It plays with whether or not it's consensual or not. She directly says to him, like, oh, if this is what it takes. But there's an almost like porno like sort of seduction to it, which makes you think that it's not that. Maybe that's just to make the scene more palatable for audiences, because obviously if it wasn't, it would be. I think it would be very difficult to keep watching the movie once you know that he's just that bad without it being more of a consensual thing.
Well, yeah, and you said, like, it kind of cuts abruptly as well.
It does. It looks like the take goes on much, much longer, and it just fades out. And I don't know if that's because I reckon they had to do that take loads of time to get it right, because it's quite a complex scene. It's all in one shot.
Yeah.
And I think maybe there was supposed to be more, which would have sort of completed what was going on. But they just sort of like phase out at this point because this was the best Cage take. I don't know.
Or yeah, that is like more than. Could have been the censors. It could have been the studio being like,
"Whoa, yeah,
we've got the point." Like,
exactly, yeah, that's
he is
true.
A bad guy. Like, you don't need to. Like,
and later on, when they repeat it toward the end of the movie, they repeat that scene but with a different couple to show you that he does. I mean, he's in exactly the same car park,
and like, he is like line for line saying the exact same spiel.
Yeah,
the like, empty your pockets, empty the handbag out. The couple even look like it seems to be the exact same spot, the exact same car park, and like they even like vaguely look similar. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, and the only difference between those scenes really is that that this time around it fades away at that point. So before anything gets sexy or weird or he does drugs with them or anything like that, it just completely cuts it out because once again it's saying you've got the point. You know what I mean? You know what he's about to do. We don't have to show you again.
But it also, like, because he eventually, it cuts to that from that moment to him doing drugs in a hotel room.
Right, yeah.
Which, like, I don't know if that is, like, if there is supposed to be, like, an element of, like, redemption in that, like, maybe he, like, has curbed, like, like, he's still got his vices, but, like, I don't know, he's only, like, grabbing people for the drugs now. Maybe he's not going that far. I don't know. I just don't know. Like, there is a reading of this film, and I'm not sure if it is like what it's about, but I definitely can see that this film is Werner Herzog's take on the kind of the Bush administration's treatment of the survivors of Hurricane Katrina.
I think that's possible. I mean, I'm sure Herzog is a guy who's done a lot of documentaries as well, that he does really care about the sort of, you know, the downtrodden and people who've kind of been fucked over by these kind of systems of you know, governmental control and stuff. I'm sure he does care about that kind of thing.
The script for this was actually set in New York, just very much like the Harvey Keitel Abel Ferrara version.
Right, okay, yeah.
And Herzog said, like, for budgetary reasons, it was cheaper to film in New Orleans, but at the same time, he wanted New Orleans to be a living, breathing character.
Wow, yeah.
That feeds into the film, and you see that with like references to like the bayou and like the kind of old like plantation style houses that are kind of
these huge
synonymous with the kind of South and specifically New Orleans. Like, but yeah, back to the point about like the kind of the treatment of the survivors of Katrina and how that ties into the Bush administration through this film, is that even at the end, even though throughout the film we have seen him do all this heinous, horrible stuff, he is still commended for it and like given a promotion again to captain. It's like, even though the government may not have done what they should have and could have done to help these people, inevitably it will be them that gets the pat on the back for the small handouts that they may have given. That's right,
exactly. I mean, and there's almost a feeling of like, even within the police force, that even though they know that Cage is like a bad guy kind of thing, or they kind of know that he takes drugs and this kind of thing, he still gets the job done, and he's not only rewarded later on, you know, by being given medals and stuff, but he's cracking cases, he's solving cases by being almost like a gonzo journalist. He's like involved in it. He's like, but directly as a result, he can point you to the house where you'll find the drugs or the fingerprints and stuff like that. There's one point where this kind of lackey sort of smaller cop character, kind of like, you know, less in a smaller position, he literally says to Cage, "Oh, you've got another one of your visions again." You know, suggesting that he's done this before, but he can't tell people why he knows what he knows, because he's obviously embroiled in the crimes themselves. It's pretty fascinating stuff.
Well, yeah, because the moment they're talking about is because he kind of dupes the bad guy they're after, known as Little Fate. Played by the amazing Exhibit. Most of you may remember him from Pimp My Ride.
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
Or obviously his illustrious rap career and affiliations with such people as 50 Cent, Dr. Dre, all that jazz.
He's great in it.
But like, he dupes him into like taking a hit on his like lucky crack pipe, and then that is what is then planted at the scene of the crime.
I didn't even fucking put that together. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So like, and it's great to see like Exhibit in this kind. He's very much living in this like plantation house as well. And I think that's like a very like real interesting imagery. Obviously, like a man, like, as much as he is like this crime boss and like, but like he has aspirations to kind of get out of the game and go straight, as it were.
He also says things that's kind of a weird race thing, because he says like, you know, I don't want to be killing any more purple sort of like black dude. He refers to like people who've come from Africa. He doesn't want to deal with African gangsters. He explicitly wants to deal with Cage instead. He kind of just out of nowhere sort of cuts to a shot of an albino alligator sort of swimming through the water. And I don't know if that was made at a similar time to this, but there's just, I mean, I don't know. I also don't know if there are any other lizards in other Herzog works, but I know that clearly he's got some fucking interest in lizards, and I don't know if I think on a weirdly primal level, it doesn't have anything to do with a direct metaphor. I think he just really likes the fact that these lizards are lizards.
Well, yeah, because there's a moment like that. It feels like it could be something more when, because Cage kind of gets embroiled by like beating up one of Eva Mendes' character, the great Eva Mendes. Like, one problem I have with that character, and like partly with this film, is that she's supposed to play like a kind of like drug addict, like riddled, like really, really bad, like him himself. They don't look as bad as they should do.
You do see her applying makeup though. Like, it is a facade that truly inside she's like rotten, or rotting.
Yeah.
And he's obviously facilitating that process. In the end, it's only actually his dad, who we don't really find out that much about, other than that he's an alcoholic who's in recovery. And he, in the end, after she's forced to stay there in hiding from these kind of gangsters that Cage has kind of got. Well, she kind of got herself involved with them, but Cage has tried to amend them beating her up, and in doing so has got in trouble with this with the sort of powers that be, the powerful gangsters that this guy is connected to.
Well, yeah, and they've obviously followed Cage in his exploits, now dealing with Little Fate.
Yeah,
and they kind of turn up, but it's at a moment when they have like the kind of, I don't know, almost like Tarantino-esque shootout.
Yeah,
and like I say Tarantino because there's that juxtaposition of the use of like music, like a kind of, I don't know what it is. Like it's obviously harmonica, but I don't know what the exact track.
Whoop, whoop, yeah. And Herzog actually uses that song in another film. He uses that song. I think the film is called Strozek. It's a film about like a sort of accordion player. And at the very end of the movie, there's a scene where they've got this kind of box in like an old carnival, and you put a penny in, and it's got a chicken in the box, and it heats a plate underneath the chicken, so it makes the chicken almost look like it's dancing, and it's playing this woo, wee, woo, kind of crazy sort of music. And it's like, so there must be some sort of relation between that, either that or, once again, just like the Lizards, I think Herzog just really likes that song.
Yeah, but there's that moment like when that happens, like you have this kind of breakdancing man who's dressed up like the head honcho gangster, and like the Cage says, like, shoot him again because I can see his soul dancing, but you don't see it at first, and then the camera pans around and there is this guy breakdancing, which like it's almost like it's quite Lynchian in like it's kind of portrayed, and like I wasn't expecting to see that, and like, I half expected when I first heard the like, because there's something like a solo harmonica. Almost, I couldn't tell if it was like diegetic or non-diegetic sound. I almost expected to turn around the camera.
Does that mean within the film?
And a guy to actually be playing the harmonica, and it wouldn't have phased me one little bit. Like, I would have just been like, "Yep, that is what's." But then the lizard crawls out, which, like, back to my point I was trying to make, that like that made me think maybe there is something like. Are they like the harbingers of death or something like that? Are they kind of like a reptile scene in that way?
It could be. I mean, the scene earlier. We've seen a few lizards. So we see an alligator in the road with its leg kind of still twitching while its guts are sort of spilled out. This sort of great animatronic alligator. The club where he looks for couples to clearly like molest or whatever is called like the Alligator Lounge or something like that.
Gator Club,
yeah. And then finally, when in the middle of the movie, he's kind of Cage is in a scene where they're sort of staking out a house or something. They've and during the scene he says, why are there fucking iguanas on my kitchen table or my dinner table or something, my coffee table maybe, and the cops go, there's no iguanas, man, no iguana.
I felt it was a bit unnecessary that he slapped an iguana.
You just pop on like slap it, doesn't he?
Yeah. But they're like regal, like especially like the colours on one of them, like that real vibrant green, like
yeah.
And then it kind of like, it's a real shame that like action cams weren't to like the like high definition that they are today. Like imagine like with like the newer GoPros now, like that stuff would have looked
super sharp,
and like really, because it almost like it's really, it takes you out of it,
jarring,
almost. Jarring, because it's almost like it looks like kind of weird behind the scenes like footage, and like it's just got like Cage.
I quite like that.
Yeah,
I quite like it. It has a bit of a Harmony Korine kind of vibe to it. A bit sort of Trash Humpers or Gummo or something. It's all suddenly it's a fly on the wall and kind of dodgy. But it also reminds you that it's a film. That's the strange thing when you do that in a movie, you do it at the risk of sort of removing the audience from the illusion. You know, and that's I can only imagine for a man as experienced and you know artistic as Herzog is, that he's fucking definitely doing that on purpose.
So Nicholas, I want you to stare at the iguana and vow you just stare into the distance. I imagine that is somewhere along the direction, and I'm not sure if there's like, do you know any like stories of like Herzog of what he's like as a director? Is he like a taskmaster, or is he like a kind of like free spirit?
I think a bit of a mixture of both, but I think he very much gets what he wants. I've heard stories of him like dyeing rats brown, at the risk of these kind of rats perishing in the process, because he needed the rats to be that specific colour. And he's very like, he says his one rule for filmmaking is that you should have a pair of bolt cutters on you all the time.
Wow.
You know, that's his one thing, so you can sort of get into any area you need to shoot. You know, he's got a very like visceral kind of like experience-based process of making movies, sometimes to the detriment perhaps of his performers and the animals.
Well, there is a great little fact for this film. According to Herzog himself, 2,400 cans of decaf coffee had to be used to make the water to appear like river water in the jail scene.
Oh my god!
Which, like, it gets even further, like, it gets bizarre because their first attempt was to use paint, which turned out to be, like, toxic.
Oh my god!
So obviously, and the team had used regular coffee as well, but, like, what they didn't factor in is that, like, the actor who was, like, trapped in the jail cell under the water was absorbing the coffee through his skin.
Oh my god!
So must have been just, like, supercharged whilst they're filming, like trying to deliver, like, some kind of panic thing. But Herzog's probably like, "This is too much. You are giving me too much energy. You are a man facing death, but you are not looking into the abyss. You are clearly deranged." And it's like, he's just, I don't know, like that stuff like that is great.
I know, and also, like, as you know, if as you said, that a lot of this film was improvised as well, right?
Well, like, I think far more of, like, the poetic moments, like, well, not just improvised, but stuff was, like, in pre-production.
Yeah.
Herzog, like, kind of took some of the stuff and said, like, we're getting rid of that. Like, I've got, or, like, adding scenes in and stuff like that. Like, I'm trying to think specifically what scenes are. Yeah.
I mean, I think the one thing I found really interesting about the fish scene. So he goes into a house, and basically, I can't remember. He's trying to take some sort of drug related thing. Is it related to the main case where he finds that fish?
Yes, it is in the house of the Senegalese family,
right? Yeah,
that have been massacred. The kind of catalyst, like
so that's why the kids have died as well, because he mentions that later, like, children were killed in the massacre. And so he finds this fish, which was clearly the pet of this child that's been killed, and the fish is in a little cup with just a small amount of water. It's a Vietnamese fighting fish, a rumble fish,
which again links this back not just to Nicolas Cage, because this was a reference to Rumblefish. Well, I don't think intentionally, but
maybe, yeah,
a reference to Rumblefish. Obviously, the great Mickey Rourke and Matt Dillon. Yeah, Matthew.
Yeah. Matthew Dillon.
Matthew. Oh, that's yeah. I'm being formal here today, guys, on the Cagey podcast. But yeah, a reference to that. Obviously, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and as I said, Nicolas Cage's second film. And it's like stuff like that, like, it might not mean anything, but to, like, keen cinephiles, or just, like,
it seems to have some connection, definitely.
Yeah, and, like, they're just, I'm not sure, like, it could have been with Herzog just, like, a pure aesthetic.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dazzling fish, you know.
Yeah.
It really does.
Fish
look
are beautiful. And
it's also a fighting fish. You know, that's the thing, that these fish are, like, very violent, and if you put one in another tank with another, it will literally kill it.
Yeah.
You know, flat out. So there's something kind of interesting about that. What I really find, I really love about that scene is the poem that Cage reads aloud, which the child has written about his fish, and it's kind of it's a badly spelt, kind of beautiful poetic sort of thing about the idea of the fish being like a cloud. And there's just something that really in this film of just absolute depravity and sort of weirdness that it really sticks out as being quite sort of like heartfelt and nice. And then at the very end of the film, we kind of cut back to this idea of the fish and the cloud, when it seems that, like, Cage's character has completely fucking lost everything. He's kind of at the end of his tether. He finally meets the man from the beginning of the movie that he decided to spring out of jail in this flood. And the man takes him to, or he takes the man to an aquarium where they sit outside the aquarium with all these fish behind them, and he asks him a question. I think, what does he ask him?
Do you believe, like, do fish dream?
Do fish dream? Yeah, and it kind of it means nothing, but at the same time it also kind of means everything. And I think that's it's the same thing as the lizards. It's connected in this kind of instinctive sort of way that doesn't seem to add up to the movie, but it seems to indicate that the characters have more than there's more going on than we realise, more going on than just drugs and healing and anarchy, because that really at the heart of the movie it is about a man who's got a bad back. He's constantly taking drugs to try to, first of all, because he's just a depraved fuck, but also because it's stopping him from feeling that pain. He's quashing his pain with all these different narcotics.
Well, yeah,
just like his dad is, just like his girlfriend is, and it's
everyone around him is kind of doing that in their own way. Like even, I think there is a key scene in this that really like brings it all like kind of full circle for me, and it's something that the gangster, like the kind of Italian mobster, says, and it's I feel like it kind of sums up a lot of it for me.
Yeah,
like because Cage himself like has an opportunity. Kind of there's a ongoing like thing with a bookie and like gambling, and then
yes, of course,
has a chance to like make like $1,500,000 or something like that for every shipment that Little Fate is bringing in, yet still wants more. And it is what that gangster says when he comes to confront Cage and like Little Fate, and he says like Cage is like, well, this like bag of heroin is more like than I owe you, and he's like, why don't I take the whole thing? Because I'm too old and I'm still doing this shit. I haven't made the money I need to get out. So done with it.
In the past, he would have just taken what he was owed, but now he'll just take it all.
And that is kind of like, that rings to me, is that's kind of what like Cage's character Terry McDonough is doing. Like he's almost too deep in the flood of just like badness and like immorality. That like he can't just take what is his fair share.
He has to go overboard.
He has to go over, and like he feels that he is. Does that?
I think there is definitely there's definitely something to that. Yeah, I mean it's like you were saying earlier as well. It's not a more conventional director would have made this a redemption story, but it's not really about that. In fact, it makes it very obvious at the end of all this crazy shit that's gone down that he is returning to doing more crime. Essentially, that he hasn't changed as a person. He might be drinking sparkling water instead of something else, but he's still just as bad on the inside as he ever was.
It's like he's found a way to push to kind of keep those worlds separate.
Yeah.
Like his home life seems to be like relative normality with Frankie like pregnant and like him obviously getting the promotion and then living in what looks like the perfect suburban house.
Yeah.
And like all looks like it's on the up and up, but like, and he looks like a complete different guy.
Yeah.
To this kind of like gargoyle-esque, like
dishevelled monster,
hunched over, like just sitting in that hotel room, like I don't know, with this kind of like and he looks like the same guy from the beginning, and just moments earlier, like he looked like a stand-up regular guy, and like to a point you made about like he hasn't changed. So like, what's really interesting about that is like this film like kind of ends with this like maniacal laugh. Do you know what I mean? Like, and just kind of halfway, like it's like a ha, and then just like kind of stops, and it's like that ambiguity of that, of like kind of like, whoa, like I don't like.
I mean, yeah, if this is a morality tale, if this is rather than the conventional redemption thing, if it actually is just trying to sort of show us that there is no such thing as morality. That's kind of interesting because it clearly does take a stance. You are supposed to think that the things that he's doing are bad. We might kind of in a sense be seeing them from his perspective, because like you were saying at one point that as the movie goes on, sort of in the second half, what he's seeing doesn't seem to be as rational as it doesn't seem to be like. I mean, it could almost be that we're only seeing what he sees, as opposed to just the actual characters in the movie who have that lead their own lives autonomously. You know what I mean? We're seeing things now from his warped perspective as opposed to before.
Yeah, because it kind of gets like bizarre and like very theatrical. Like there is a moment like when like just it's almost like enter stage left.
Yeah,
like
it's one shot as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Like the chief like kind of comes in and he's like, "We've got it."
Yeah,
and everyone is just animated and kind of like this like very unnatural and like. But
suddenly all of his dreams come true because he gets all the money that he owed to the guy that he's in debt to, the gambling guy. Suddenly he gets 10 grand in an envelope that he puts down there.
And played by the amazing Brad the Riff, his kind of bookie. Those of you may know him as the voice of like Chucky, and like he plays Charles Lee Ray in the like Child's Play films, and just kind of like.
He also played an alien in another Herzog film, and he's also in Blue Velvet as well, isn't he? And some other Lynch stuff.
Yeah. I think he is. I definitely remember him from that strange scene, like the singing scene. You know, like before, is it an Elvis song that's performed?
It's no, Candy Club Clown, isn't it? It's not Elvis. It's I can't remember the guy's name. You know, fuck it. What's going on?
But like. And Brad the Riff, he's popped up. Like I saw him amazingly in an episode of Criminal Minds recently.
Oh yeah,
where he fantastic
just shows up.
Yeah, but like in this, it's kind of it's peppered with just like great performances from people like
Michael Shannon.
Great like character actors. Like not like, and it might not necessarily be like I know exactly who that. Do you know what I mean? Not like oversaturated like certain actors like everything they've been in. This is a bit more like kind of know who that guy is.
Yeah, and then they just sort of come out of the woodwork,
and they kind of just disappear back into it. But everyone in their own right is great. Like obviously Jennifer Coolidge, famous for playing Stifler's mum in the American Pie franchise. But she's great in this. Like she plays a nice counterpoint, like not a counterpoint, like a mirror of Cage that like.
Oh, she even says at one point, doesn't she? She goes, "You and me were birds of a feather. Like you don't have to hide your cocaine." And it kind of looks in that scene like they're going to have a sex scene.
Yeah,
it has that vibe.
I was very like. But like the moments in that as well, like reminded me, especially the way it was shot and just like the kind of focusing on the mundanity of everyday life and just like kind of home life of like David Lynch's Twin Peaks: The Return.
Like, these kind of scenes of just people watching TV and focus. Literally, we watch the TV for a while and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to know with the stuff that is seen on TV because obviously, like, none of that is ever an accident.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like obviously with more time and like, do you know what I mean? We could like,
as we know about when we watched the Nicolas Cage Wicker Man film. There's the bit at the beginning where I thought for a while there were phantom horse sounds that were coming out of nowhere, but instead it was actually that they were playing from the TV because he's watching some kind of cowboy movie. But of course, maybe that means nothing. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a reference to Cowboys for Jesus. Would have been the original Wicker Man sequel. What became the Wicker Tree? I have no idea. But I'm sure the TV scenes mean something. But I just think, I don't know, looking back on this film, 'cause it is hard to describe it without actually seeing it. It's a difficult movie, not only to analyse but to break down. I think that there is something shamanic going on in this movie. I think it's about an immoral man who on a deep, perhaps reptilian level is a bad guy, but he has some mystical ability, and maybe it is just that he's at the crime scenes because he's a criminal as well, and he's embroiled in these worlds. But the fact that that character says that line that like, "Oh, you've had enough one of your visions again," I think also presents to me the idea that he's kind of. People know that this guy has visions, and we're seeing his visions throughout the movie. There's something. There's the mystical and the visceral that are always kind of in this kind of incestuous relationship with each other. And sometimes with this action cam, as you called it earlier, we're actually entering that mystical space. We're seeing things through, like we follow an actual live alligator approaching the animatronic dead alligator in the middle of the road through the shaky cam, as if like Cage's mind is like wandering through the stratosphere in some sort of reptilian nightmare.
That is fantastic stuff. Well, I feel like we should talk about like the fact that this is like, it's actually something here that says like this was like promoted as a remake of the 1992 Bad Lieutenant.
Right,
and,
yeah. I'm confused about this.
A crazy link. They were actually both released on the exact same day.
Whoa.
Just obviously however many years apart. So, yeah, the 20th of November, 1992 and 2009, respectively. Don't ask me to do the maths on how many years that is. So, yeah, Werner Herzog, though, claims this is not a remake. He says he's never seen the original and does not consider it a remake. Additionally, producers seem to have added Bad Lieutenant to the title in order to get better marketing.
Right, of course.
Whether remake, reimagining, follow-up, or none of the aforementioned, both movies are clearly connected by a basic plot of drug addict, violent cop, and like sex encounters.
And it's that specific sex encounter that we've mentioned a lot already. It's that one that seems to. I can't believe that there is no connection, because that seems it has to be linked on some level. Even if Herzog didn't see it, I mean, I'd be interested to know who wrote this script and whether or not how much Herzog actually had to do with it. Because is it not possible that he got this script and then decided to sort of add his own shit to it? And the guy who originally wrote the script was thinking of Bad Lieutenant at the time?
Well, I definitely think that was the case, because obviously, like, the moving it over to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And
it was originally set in New York, but then it was Herzog's choice to change it, right?
yeah, and, well, like, that and budgetary thing, maybe because, like, they got Herzog on board, like, they knew that it wasn't going to be a commercial beast that could have been. And like, they're not going to be able to pump in the hundreds of millions of dollars that they do into other films. Obviously, straight away, it's a higher certificate film.
Well, but it seems crazy as well, because obviously Abel Ferrara is also an art director. You know what I mean? Like, he's not making conventional films, which are, especially not now. Like the stuff he's made with like Dafoe in the last few years and stuff like 444 and things like that. Like those movies didn't make, you know, millions of dollars. You know, they might have cost that much, but they certainly didn't make it back.
Well,
you know,
like,
they are like
Abel Ferrara himself, like, said in an interview, finding out that the movie is being remade was a horrible feeling, like when you're being robbed, and those involved in this remake should all die in hell.
Wow. I think you've got to die to go to hell. I think it's well, I think it maybe means sort of die again and again and be sort of tortured by sort of small imps or something like that, you know.
And on Nicolas Cage's performance, he says he can't believe he had the nerve to even touch Harvey Keitel's performance.
Well, I mean, I think that's sad. I mean, there's obviously we've seen fucking National Treasure 2. They're both in that.
Yeah, they're both in both National Treasure films.
Yeah.
They like, and like, I think that is the last time they were on screen together. Right. So that moment in National Treasure 2 was like whether they knew it or not, was handing the baton of the Bad Lieutenant on. The writer of this film is a guy called William M. Finkelstein.
Oh,
I looked at his credits and what he's written. This is the one and only film piece of work he's ever written on. He's kind of like made his name and like worked a lot on kind of like just tons and tons of cop shows.
Right.
So like,
okay, so that actually kind of makes sense. He's done loads of cop shows. I mean, it's almost like he must have been picked specifically for writing that kind of script. Or maybe what he was doing was he wrote the script, he sort of ferried it around. He was like, look, I do cop shows, but I've got this idea for this film, probably inspired by the original Bad Lieutenant. Herzog picks it up, goes, let's get rid of all this bullshit, cuts up some of the bullshit, adds in the crazy fish and the alligators, and that's the movie we got. Is that possible?
I reckon so.
Yeah.
I reckon so, because this, like, I feel like Herzog doesn't care about the title. Like, the title, he has said himself he wishes it didn't have that title. That could have added to its detriment,
right?
Because people were expecting maybe
a bad
like,
remake,
or just like a film that was exactly the same as that original.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a shame that he shuns it so much, though, because whether he's seen the movie or not, I do think that there is an interesting connection between these two movies, and I think they kind of, weirdly, as companion pieces, I think they kind of work quite well together, because, I mean, you were mentioning earlier, I don't remember the original Bad Lieutenant that well, but as you were mentioning about like the nuns and stuff in the original, there's a level of mysticism running through that far more depraved and scary movie. This feels light-hearted in comparison to that film.
Well, there is a moment in this film that I thought, like, they must be referencing the original, because when he's in Fairuza Balk's apartment, when they're about to like kind of engage in some illustrious like
leathery boots,
leather boots, and she's like treads on his cock.
Yeah. It weirdly looks as if there's something going on in his trousers, but it's actually just another ill-fitting cage costume.
Yeah, I don't get the costume, and he solely wears one suit unless he's in his kind of like police like regalia when he's up for the but that is it. He wears this beige ill-fitted suit, which is mirrored back to him in the character of Little Fate, who seems to just have the same tailor, same ill-fitted, same beige like kind of horrible suit.
But yeah, so in that scene we see what like beside the leather sexy boots on the desk, there's loads of statuettes of saints and like angels and like Mother Mary, Mary, stuff like that. I mean, how can it not be a reference to that? I think this is. I mean, when I mentioned Jodorowsky earlier again about the penises, but Jodorowsky said that he never read Dune before he chose to adapt it, and of course, it was ill-fated. He never got to make it. Of course, what was his name again? Sorry,
Brad Dourif.
Brad Dourif was in David Lynch's Dune as well, so there's a connection here as we're talking about that, with some stuck-on eyebrows as well. But yeah, he never read the book before he adapted it, and I think he said some pretty harsh things about Herbert as a writer, despite apparently never having read it. I think there's something about artists sort of adapting things that they don't want their vision to be tinged by somebody else's, and I think there's a beauty in that. So I reckon Herzog wouldn't have even known when he picked up the script and said, I want to film it, that it necessarily was a Bad Lieutenant thing, especially if it had a different title. Herzog would have just been like, okay, let's do it. I like the idea of a bad cop. And then he was just like, and then later on, when the studio tried to put the title on it, he suddenly was like, fuck. They sort of tricked me into making a remake.
Well, it's that really interesting thing as well of having two people coming from two different like viewpoints and essentially making films that are like familiar and like can like have a lot of similarities, and that to me is super cool.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I find
it's
it interesting.
like, I don't know, it would be like almost like saying to me and you, like, here's the seed of a story, go home, write what you can.
Yeah. Throw some things on that.
And if you're like creative enough, like, will there be? I don't know if there was stuff that like had to be in this. Do you know what I mean? Like, what were their points? Was there like? Mate, I don't know. I don't know whether the writer or like the studio maybe like led Herzog down a path. Like maybe he had this scene of him shaking down for drugs, and someone said like, "Oh, how about like you
bit of sex?
How about you get him into sex?" And like him not realizing that they're coercing him into essentially mirroring a scene.
Oh man, that would be really nuts if that was the case. That is very interesting. But it's such a key scene in the film. I think it can't be. It's got to be a case of is it Finkelstein and whatever his name was?
Yeah.
It's got to be a case of him having been inspired by it and having written his own version. I think that's it. Overall, though, I do think this movie works. I'm not sure why it does, but I know the first two things. First of all, Herzog's sort of brilliant like this atmosphere that he conjures up. He does it in every single work that he's ever made. And secondly, because of Cage. If you replace Cage with another actor in this movie, I don't think it would work. I think it's unique to him, and he really owns the role and makes it fun. In that there's a great scene where he goes into the pharmacy to get his drugs kind of earlier on.
Yeah, the mirrors like Matchstick Men, but it is that ramped up to like 11 fucking million of him just like kind of like like pulling guns on people, like, give me the fucking prescription now. Like, like, you had me waiting here for 40 minutes while you should make a fucking personal call. And like, he's just enraged. And like, I don't know, I like to think that is Herzog, like, kind of like going, hey, send that. Thought you were great in that. Let's
do another pharmacy scene.
Let's do a homage. Or it's just a happy accident.
I reckon it's more of a happy accident. But once again, I mean, who knows? It could have actually been that Finkelstein was inspired by Bad Lieutenant and Matchstick Men, and he ended up coming up. I mean, who fucking knows? I mean, who knows, man? Who knows?
So yeah, you would recommend?
I'd recommend it. I think it doesn't stand up there with some sort of crime movies or sort of like cop films. I don't know. It's not necessarily like one of the best, but it's unique, and there's nothing else quite like it. And it's never boring. Once again, I know it seems like a sort of cheap thing to say about a movie, but I'm bored to fucking tears when I watch loads of movies, and this is not like that at all. This is not G-Force.
Oh boy. Yeah, don't get me started on G-Force. This podcast will go on for fucking ever. One last thing I was going to say is it's nice. Herzog does kind of more commercial films, and then he does his art house movies, and then he does documentaries. I think it's quite nice to see Herzog do these more commercial works, but also give them that kind of artistic, sort of creative, auteur flair that he gives to his more sort of dedicated art house pieces. I think it breathes new life into the kind of pop big budget movies. Yeah, I'm always a fan to always see stuff like that, like almost like one for them, two for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But the one for them, I'm still giving like a little slice of what I've got to offer.
Exactly. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
One of the
things, Wonder Bread.
Yeah, one of the things with this like podcast is, I don't know. Hopefully, you guys at home have enjoyed this, but like, I find it sometimes like, I worry that these films, the ones that I enjoy, are maybe not the not the episodes that the listener like will latch onto, or like, do you know what I mean? Like, because like with the films that are inherently bad or flawed or offensive to the audience, or just in any way,
they make for better conversation.
They make for better, but this film, there's so much to unpack. Like, I feel like there like. Me and you were batting ideas of what it could have been about. Like, even this, he is that physical personification of the hurricane and the destruction it has laid, and especially because it seems like he is singling out like black, lower class people a lot of the time. Like, it's only little Fate we see who's living in some time like form of like wealth. But
even we realise even that wealth is stunted when his wife and his child walk in, and she says, "Look, can you look after our child while I go to the shops?" And it angers little Fate, because little Fate is still trying to live in this sort of fraudulent dream. You know, they can't even afford a nanny or someone to look after him.
Well, I imagine you've got to pay a nanny quite a lot to be like
on call 24/7.
Ignore all the.
Oh, all the drugs.
I didn't think about that. In our house.
Oh, they could get a drug nanny, surely.
So, you would definitely watch this film. You've watched it
I will watch it again. I look forward to watching it again with a finer tooth comb.
Amazing. So, I would definitely watch this film again. This is one of the ones that will not be put into the effigy at the end of the season and burnt in a field. This is one that will be on heavy rotation in the Patsilivus household.
Oh, fantastic.
But we're on to some little scores on how this film rated with those idiots on the internet.
Okay, what's it first? Rotten Tomatoes?
IMDb we're going with first, and they gave this film 6.6 out of 10.
I knew it'd be a 6.
Yeah?
I knew it, yeah. I was already trying to say it. Yeah.
And Rotten Tomatoes, this film scores...
I think it's a 40%.
86%.
Whoa, people liked it. Wow.
And the late great Roger Ebert gave this film 4 out of 4.
Wow, amazing. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. I mean, I'm sure I must have expressed some of my feelings on Ebert in the past. Sometimes he gets it fucking properly wrong. A lot of the time, I just feel exactly the same as he does. I think in this case, he's totally right. It's at least a 3.5 or a 4.
Well, he says about it, no one is better at this kind of performance than Nicolas Cage. He's a fearless actor. He doesn't care if you think he goes over the top. If a film calls for it, he will crawl to the top hand over hand with bleeding fingernails. Regard him in films as various as Wild at Heart and Leaving Las Vegas. He and Herzog were born to work together. They are both made restless by caution.
Oh, god damn, that's beautiful.
So, like, I feel like quoting Roger Ebert makes everything else we've said redundant. Because he has put it so poetically, then our rambly shambles of
Talk about Rasputin's dick.
Yeah. And then we get such beautiful words from a man. But one of the things, like, just wanted to add is that Nicolas Cage had to has to come out and said that, like, he wasn't under the influence whilst making this film.
Oh, nice.
So obviously, like, people must have, like, speculated, like, it was actually baby powder he was sniffing.
Yeah.
But linking it to Leaving Las Vegas, a film where he actually got drunk.
Did he?
To play that part, which makes me not feel so bad about getting drunk whilst recording that episode, because the subject matter is definitely sensitive and has some baggage in the real life, seeing as the writer of the book eventually fulfilled his self-prophecy of killing himself in Las Vegas.
Yeah, good lord. Heartbreaking.
Crazy.
He also wrote an episode of Rugrats, I found out today, that writer.
Wow.
And he managed to get, a friend of his managed to get him on board for the first season of Rugrats, and after writing the episode, he found out that they changed almost all of it, and he was just like, that's fucking disgusting.
That's when he turned
it.
to the booze.
Well, it was only 2 weeks after we found out that they were going to make Leaving Las Vegas that he shot himself.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. Dark notes.
So on that somber tone, I've been Petrus Patsilivus.
I've been Bob.
You have been listening to two men sat in a living room, trying to make sense of all these lizards and reptiles crawling around. I will not be able to sleep tonight without thinking that a lizard is going to crawl out from under my bed and onto my face. And remember, next time when you shoot a man, make sure to shoot him an extra time to get rid of his dancing soul and let that lizard crawl on. And if you're doing a drug deal and people walk in, make sure you've got installed a nice handy shotgun under your desk, because you never know when you're going to need to pull that bad boy off. So don't go out, guys, tonight and shake people down for drugs, because it's not nice. People just want to enjoy themselves. We've been Caged In. Love you. Bye-bye.